I'd like to introduce everybody to a dear friend of mine, Dr. Sean Patterson. Sean, welcome to the podcast today.
Why, thank you. Good to be alive and kicking and talking to you.
I thought it would be great to have you on, friend. I've known Sean just about 15 years now. I can't believe that you can count that back from the time we spent together, living together in the same town, same proximity, as well as various church group and men's functions and things of that nature. And it's been well over a decade. And it was great to reconnect with you and kind of check in with where you are with your practice, with life, what's happening in, transfer, if you will, in the season of life of halftime, as you're in halftime now with kids and practice.
You just hit 50.
Woo!
That's halftime, right?
50 is like 25, yeah. Well, the interesting statistic now, they say, the average male is 76, so halftime's like really 32.
Yeah, it's probably worse than that.
35, 37, what I mean? We're getting older.
Yeah.
And our bodies are getting older because of a lot of different things, which I want to get into with you because you're so knowledgeable in this space. So I know you're professionally trained in chiropractic care, but you do a lot of things, not chiropractic care. There's some of that, I believe, but update me on how your practice has changed and what are you doing now in the space of wellness?
Yeah. Well, just one little caveat.
Yeah.
Practic. I believe the word chiro is hands. So it means, it's practice of using your hands. And so I still do that. I think chiropractors have kind of been, I don't know what that word is. Is it like they kind of been given this back pain, neck pain thing. And that actually can be very true, but it can be very far from how some people practice. So I'm one of those some people that believes physical touch is very important. So I like my training in chiropractic care. But yeah, I just started getting sick people and people with endocrine and immune problems and chronic problems that don't make sense. And so instead of just trying to address their chronic problems, let's say it's even pain, with the same way I've been trained. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? If my PT friends, if you go to a PT and you have a chronic problem, what are you going to get? A little PT and some more PT, right?
Right.
Go to a chiropractor, you're going to get some, adjustments and some more adjustments, and if a little's good, more must be better. And it just kind of, if you go to nutrition, acupuncture, you're going to get more of that thing. And once in a while, there's a home run, right? You one and done. People are like, wow, that was amazing. That's not the norm. So what I started finding out is the body's crying for help. We don't know how to speak the language of the body, so to speak. Apparently, it doesn't speak English. And in fact, if you speak English, you usually have a lot more problems than the rest of the world, I found. So maybe English is the problem. But so I just started dealing with sick people, and they'd come in, and like in a given week, I'll have somebody with a hyperthyroid, which is an autoimmune kind of behavior where the body's attacking its own tissues. I'll have somebody that has sciatic pain but with no injury, nothing. Most of the time, that's typically a virus that's being manifest in the dorsal nerve root, which is kind of how shingles works. But there's hundreds and thousands of viruses. And then, in the same week, I'll get a migraine that's just because somebody's eating tomatoes or they've been taking Prilosec for 30 years and don't know that depletes magnesium. And now they're having seizures and migraines because of magnesium deficiency. And all this is just simple. It really is simple, but it's hard to figure out sometimes because people are in the same system that created it most of the time, right? That level of thinking. So there you have it. That's what I'm doing these days.
Well, it's a huge, huge field in the things that you're doing. I know that, especially in light of, this show is not political or about politics at all, but I think everything that we touch has touched a politician or some type of bureaucrat, and our health is no different. And I think it's really come to light front and center with what RFK had been talking about. With pharma and as well as our food supply. And then there are several other doctors that are making the rounds right now. They're, I think, feeling empowered to talk about how we are damaging the body, and somehow by design, these things are coming around like chronic diseases, and
Yeah.
how 80%, 70%, some say, I don't have the statistics, I'm sure you're well read in peer-reviewed journal, but are nutritional in process.
Yeah.
The amount of
One
sugar.
stat, I think the
Tell us
CDC,
about, can you talk about that a little bit? I know
well,
you've
I
been
think
reading.
the CDC has one stat that they're probably right on in my experience, and that is that
Yeah.
90% or more of degenerative diseases are stress-based.
Yes.
So, yeah, and I think mental emotional stress is probably what that's referring to. I would agree, but there are a lot of stresses that come outside of that too. I think, in other words, if somebody lives a pretty low stress life, and when I mean low stress, mentally, emotionally, let's say their marriage is solid, kids are all doing well and healthy, out of the house, everything like the American dream is kind of in full effect, right? Whatever the American dream is. But I think that is part of it, right? Your 401k looks good, your house is paid off, your kids, your 2.0 kids, your boy, your girl, they both have careers, they both married people with like faith, they're on the trajectory, right? That's where I would say people would say, I have a great life, very low stress, but then they're falling apart. Their knees are shot, their hips are shot. They have, chronic shingles. They have blah, blah, blah. They have all these weird things, right? One of the two nowadays of married couples seem to. And so what is that? So that's where we get into what you're saying. Well, maybe it's something you're eating. Maybe it's something you're taking. Maybe it's something you're not eating. Maybe it's something you're not taking. Maybe it's everything that you hear that's pretty much backward. One of my favorite marketing gurus, you know a guy named Dan Kennedy? You ever hear of Dan?
Oh, sure. The copywriter galore.
Yeah. No BS sales, direct response.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, he basically says anything you see in business, just do the opposite and you'll probably have much greater success, because people do things not because they work, just because they do things because that's what's been modeled to them. And same thing with health, same thing with exercise, same thing with nutrition. Bob, get your fruits and vegetables. Really? You want to talk about fruits and vegetables, right? Like, no matter what you hear, if you could give me some of those taglines just as an American that you've heard in your doctor's office. How's your cholesterol? Oh, it's getting a little high, but we're okay. Yeah, what does that even mean? That doesn't even mean anything. You do know all these constructs are pretty much nonsense, and they've been proven to be. And I just think the financial machines are in full rotation. Those RPMs are revved up, and they're not going to slow down because there's too many people depending on that, that system, I guess you would say. So I think maybe most of them start with good intention, but they turn pretty sour pretty quick.
Unintentionally, perhaps, because they're looking.
Unintentional consequences. And then it just turns into greed. It just turns into greed, I think. And that's this world, right? This isn't, this world is not ours. It's belongs to somebody else right now.
Right. So in your practice, is there something that you've seen just over the last 5 years, pick a date, that has been much more prevalent and on the rise that has surprised you? I know you've seen a lot, so maybe surprise is the wrong word, but something like, I can't figure this out. You haven't put your finger on the pulse yet, but I'm seeing a lot more people that are presenting X.
Not really. Actually, I think it's probably better than ever.
Okay.
Because people are starting to realize we can't keep being told the same nonsense. Now, do I see more conditions? Absolutely. Do I see weirder conditions? Absolutely. But, we had something in 2020 and 21 that's kind of still going on right now, from pharma that just put a big question mark on stuff. But it can't be blamed for everything. I think what happens is when somebody alters the way their DNA works or the way their body's working, it's just going to pick the weak point and pick on that, right? Doesn't create it. It's like a car. Like if we go drive somewhere, let's say you got a car, you've been leaking a little bit, your head gasket might be about to go. Go drive up one of your mountains, full red line. Your weak point is going to come out pretty quick, right? Then we can't look back and try to reverse engineer and blame somebody. That's what we do. But the reality is we all have weak points, right? So, but yeah, there is weirder stuff. I'm just saying more of it. I've always seen weird things, but now it's like, oh my goodness. And you start to listen to the statistics of this and that. It's like, holy smokes. But what I do appreciate is people are finally starting to question things. A little late, I just listened to, I think it was either the Sean Ryan show or no, Tucker or Joe Rogan or somebody. They had on these doctor and this politician and their brother and sister, and they're talking about, she's breaking free from it. And I applaud it. I think it's awesome. I'm like, dude, where were you 30 years ago? We were talking about this stuff 30 years ago and nobody cared.
Yeah.
Now it's so obnoxious that even people who were in a coma are waking up going, wait a minute, this, here's my next book, Bob. It's really, I'm not even joking. It's called Don't Be Dumb.
Don't be dumb. I
Don't
think
be
that's
dumb.
part of the title of the episode that we're
Yeah.
recording.
Don't be dumb. I mean, myself included, but like I look back, I'm like, I mean, it's kind of, it's a joke, right? We're not dumb, but we sure act dumb sometimes. We believe dumb things. It's just, I don't mean dumb to be so offensive. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. There's just, you believe in the wrong things. You're something's dumbed down. Some sensory, spiritual, unconscious, something is dumbed down because the things that we tolerate and believe are just wild. So I'm starting to see people come out of that. And I feel bad for them. I feel bad saying, hey, you've gotten yourself into a really bad space. It's going to take years to heal. Now, it doesn't mean it'll take years to feel better, but the bad side is we're waking up to all this, right? But we still want the quick fix because that's what we're used to. I want it now. I want my investment to yield 12% this year. I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you know, like, that's not how it normally works? I mean, I know Dave Ramsey will tell you get 10, 12.
Keep in mind, they made like 30% the last 3 years in a row. Only made 5% this year. Yeah, the average is 7 to 8. So people.
Yeah, exactly.
The millennial generation.
Exactly. And so that's what I see. I see people really waking up to that, but there's a lot of discontent. And unfortunately, though, what I also see is there's tons of people just waiting and marketing them and just waiting to pounce on that frustration. And then I'm like, okay, great. I'm really geared to help these people. And then also, oh, there they go again. Where'd they go? Now they're down just some other, bee pollen, gluten-free, unpasteurized, sustainable, green thing. Really? We're going to do this again? We're going to do it again it's like, don't be dumb. Tone it down. Let's just stay simple.
Let me hit the pause button on that for a second. Do you think that really, it's been around for a long time, probably people trying to accelerate their success in whatever endeavor they have, whether it's business, you find a hack, right? Find your guru, and in the health space, I remember Tim Ferriss maybe 10 years ago came out, the 4-hour work week and then the 4-hour week, right? And I bought him. I'm all in. I'm a sucker for marketing as well as producing marketing.
Yeah.
And, it's got some fun things, and we've always trying to biohack our way through things along the way. And so do you think that really, as it's translated to today, is a remnant of what people are trying to do? Because I follow a lot of marketing, follow a lot of influencers and people talking about it. And it seems like the people, especially in the male space or like the fitness space, they've really settled into getting into a routine. Protein is king, right? Forget about trying to hack the rest of your weight loss. You have to be in a deficit to lose weight. There's like 4 or 5 things that everybody talks about, whether they're true or not, but they work for people. As opposed to, well, tweak this and then put your face directly into the sunlight and then walk around grounding, walk your feet into the grass 5 times a day. And all those things here and there. But it seems like things have settled down a little bit as it relates to biohacking our health. I don't know if you've seen that or experienced it.
I think it's just overload.
Differently.
I think it's just overload. People are overload, so I think they're just like taking a break.
Yeah.
It's just like when they're on overload with politics or what's on the news. Sometimes people just take a break from spending money, right? This happens all the time. That creates a whole nother but they just take a break. I think that's probably a healthy behavior too. However, when it becomes, fear-based and things, so when you're in shock, the first thing I think we ought to do, because shock doesn't mean it's bad. Shock could be good too. But we have to stop and go, why am I in shock? And just sit with something for a little bit. And then we can make good determinations. But people stay in the shock phase or assume it's bad. And I think it was Malcolm Gladwell in one of his books, one of those fun books he wrote, like Tipping Point or something. Talked about that shock. And the first thing is we reject it. But sometimes it's just shocking because you've never heard of it. Like if I say, Bob, don't be dumb. Let's say you come to my office, I'm like, don't be dumb anymore. Yeah, what? You offended me.
Well, you've seen me. You're Bob, you are.
Yeah, there's the end. But the reality is like, some of it's just kind of silly, but some of it's like, oh yeah, I've been acting dumb. It's okay. Like, this is what we do. Let's not do it anymore. But yeah, these
Yeah.
biohack things, I think
Give
what
me some
people, let me ask you, I don't know if people understand this, but I think, and I'm shocked by it, that word nuance, like something has to be nuanced to you specifically, not, I mean, I used to think that was a little true, and now I think it's like unreal how true that is. Like, there's nothing more true that how many billions of people on this earth, and there really is one of you with the way you've been raised, the way your biochemistry works, the way your DNA's been jacked and hacked and distorted, the way you've eating, your elevation, your latitude, how much light. There's nobody like you. So when you come and ask me, hey, I got this weird problem, I could give you the cookie cutter generic first, right? Which I really think when it comes to health, that should be free. Like, there should just be free information. Hey, here's the basic tenets of being well. You need some air, you need some water, you need some food, you need some shelter, you need some sleep, right? That's pretty much what you need. But even that has gotten so weird, right? Well, what kind of water? Is it pH water? Is it low deuterium water? Is your water, does it have fluoride in it? Fluoride lowers your IQ, which, by the way, it does in studies, but the government won't say it lowers IQ. They will just say, yes, fluoridated water has led to lower IQ. I don't know how they can the correlation, causation. But like, so, okay, well, there's water. Well, let's not talk about water. Let's talk about food. Gosh, that's what you let out. Well, is it vegan? Is it vegetarian? Is it keto? Is it carnivore? What is it? What's best for you? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Is it seed oil? Is it not seed oil? Is LDL good? Is LDL bad? Seed oil lowers LDL. That must be good unless it's not. All these things. All right. So now we've disqualified your water and your food. So we could talk about shelter. Okay. Well, I live in this big old house I don't use, right? I use like 2 rooms. My office seriously is like 7x6. And I have a 3,100 square foot house, and I'm in a little box. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't even use half the rooms, right? So maybe shelter's not.
That's maybe a wife. That's wife issue. She's like,
maybe
get out of my space.
Yeah. Then we got air. We won't go into air. What are the waves in the air right now? What are all the particulates? What are all the, oh my gosh, are there chemtrails? Are there this? Are there that? Are there, oh, okay. What's the last one? What can we talk about? I don't even know what's left.
Wow. Scary thing, interesting thing, chemtrails. We don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but Idaho Department of Agriculture came out and said they have been spraying our clouds for the last 25 years. Yep. Because it's a big area for rain and manipulation of the weather.
Create more moisture and more moisture. You can create a cloud over an area and let it rain on it.
High desert, and we need more rain. Yeah. And have unique rain change weather patterns. Just came out, interviewed the head of the director. Oh, we've been doing it for 20 years. But then you had like every conspiracy theory. Oh, they're trying to poison us. Well, what prevents some other people from doing crazy things like that, right? Yeah. So you just hold on, whatever conspiracy theory you have, hold on, wait 6 months, and it'll come around, be true.
Yeah, it'll be declassified and admitted. The problem is some things sneak in there that are just nonsense, and it's really hard to know which are which and who's telling the truth and who's lying.
So in your practice, have you found that there's more females, more males that are...
For me, it's always been more females.
More females?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like desperate women. They come in and they pay their bill and they listen. No, I'm actually, one of the chapters in my Don't Be Dumb book, I'm not even joking, we already have the friends helping me with the whole layout, is what I learned from appropriately touching 10,000 women. That's one of the chapters.
That's very, very, very intriguing and captivating. And if it stays on bookshelves, they live on.
Well, once again, it's about appropriate touch, right? That's part of healing. Right. I think typically women, I mean, the guys I see are great with touch and they understand its value in health and wellness, but they only represent about 10% of the people who walk in the door. They typically get better results because I feel like if you get a guy like you and me to come in, they're going to do well. It's just getting them in is tricky because they're very, live in an area where there's a lot of real high responsibility careers, people that are stressed out, people that are hiding all their flaws and sins, and it's killing them. And they're just deathly afraid of dealing with those things. So they don't. And so they just repress. And then those time bombs end up looking like a stroke, an aneurysm, a heart attack, a complete joint devastation or an infection that lands you in the hospital. So then you're in that allopathic Western medicine kind of, and chances are you're not going to go, time out, I'm going to go talk to my wife's chiropractor. And that doesn't typically happen. But if they avoid that path, then they do real well. And, what I
It's
do isn't
interesting,
that weird. It's just kind of weird.
very interesting that plurality or females. And so, we really talk specifically about men issues, but health is a human issue. But
Well,
you
what does
mentioned
health mean to you, though? I want to ask you
what it
that.
means to me. Well, the thing is great because I wanted to rewind on this is that
Yeah, what is
you
health?
mentioned that health is a sense of well-being, fulfillment that I'm physically and mentally able to fulfill my life and my potential and the way that God created me
Yeah,
and designed me to be.
yeah,
And
I like
so
that.
that is physical, medical, and spiritual. I mean, physical, spiritual, and mental. And you mentioned earlier that, we somehow self-medicate, we somehow be really dumb or really, really dumb. And then we wonder why later on things aren't working like they used to. And I understood that the issues as it relates to liver and onset alcohol-related alcohol use disorder diseases in your 50s and 60s were all started and were affected by the things you did in your 30s.
Why?
But and whether that was true or not, I had to step back and think, says, you know, the conditioning of drinking alcohol, very accepted in our society, right?
For sure.
Nobody's doing anybody pot, now in certain states. It's just like alcohol. We're all onset because perhaps in my 20s, in my teens, and then it carried on. The repetitive use of it over a period of years has stripped away resiliency of other bodily and mental functions. I know over the years I've burned off some brain cells.
Yeah.
And so that means at some point I'm going to have to account for all the brain cells that now in my 50s I'm going to need to operate and excel and do the things now that I've seen the light of, my ways. And it made me just think, like with weight or alcohol, quitting alcohol was one of the greatest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah. Alcohol is
She
an
made that journey is
interesting one.
hard, especially if you've been drinking for a number of years and then you stop and you go cold turkey or whatever the process is. I'm fortunate that I didn't have to go anywhere, but it's like just saying I'm making a choice here. But it takes time too. It's just not like one day you quit and you walk away. There's a healing process that has to happen as well for all this
Yeah.
to make.
Yeah. And it's
It
not
was a
just.
long-winded answer, but it's like things take time to change your body.
Well,
And
and probably a lot more time than you're even referring to. Like even when you say it takes a long time and you're in this process, right? You've been going through this process for a little bit.
yeah,
How far into the process you are and how long did it take you to feel like, okay, kind of got my handle on this. I'm understanding it. How far in do you feel like, wow, I'm kind of out of that acute, really tough phase?
yeah, 30 days was just a bitch.
So that
30 days
really
was
smooth.
just like, oh my gosh. And then I started getting smart about where and how and what I was doing. So I made a conscious decision not to go out to eat. I cooked at home, which made sense. Eating home was healthier. And then I had to make sure there was none of it in the house, not even a bottle of wine and things of that nature. So there's a lot of issues with regards to proximity for me. So proximity or triggers. And then also I discovered that my need for maybe having a beer or two or having a whiskey on a Friday or a couple whiskeys on over the weekend were fed by not fulfilling my thirst. I'm dehydrated. And I found that whether it's transference of a crutch to one thing to another or trigger, I found that as opposed to coming in after working out or being out with my friends fishing or doing these things, instead of going for the beer, which like, oh, it sounds so good coming off the mountain, right? It was, give me a cold seltzer, non-alcoholic, water, a flavored water, or drink a lot of water. And then it went away. And that was me. You know, I know everybody's different, but it was like there was much more habitual process and proximity
Mm-hmm.
to all use.
And then,
And
how long was
and
that
so
process from
that
start
took
to
90,
finish?
and then 90 days, and then 120 days was like, okay, I can do
You kind of
anything. Go to
figured it out as far as,
all done. Yeah, I go to parties. I'm prepared. I just like always bring. I don't even drink the non-alcoholic beer and stuff
mm-hmm.
because I feel that I know myself now that I don't want to condition and acquire or maintain the flavor of a non-alcoholic beer because the taste of beer
Mm-hmm.
remains that triggering. I spent a lot of time in marketing in the addiction medicine space, so triggers and things of that nature. And I'm saying, so
Yeah.
why would I want to have an alcoholic beer? Do I really like the taste of beer, or do I like the social factions and some taste of beer? And I'm like, so no, I'll bring my own flavored seltzers, pour it in a solo cup, and just have a blast with everybody. You know,
Nice.
so I put those types of things in there, and I think I'm just very fortunate. I dodged a bullet. And it was just a conscious decision. I looked at the weight. I looked at my processing, being lethargic and tired, you know, going to be a grandpa. Those are mental cues and decisions that I had to make.
Well, it sounds like there was, I mean, correct me if that's not accurate, but you
Yeah.
looked at a bigger picture, not just, like if it was just the weight or just feeling like maybe I'm developing a dependence, I feel like most of those people would go to their medical doctor and they get pretty standard issue advice. Drink the non-alcoholic stuff instead. It wouldn't deal with the real roots of it. And the roots of it for you is I don't like what this is doing to my future, maybe, and I don't like being the master of it. And it's a lot more than just weight. I mean, weight might be part of it, but like, you know.
Yeah.
So for other people though, and it's interesting too, because alcohol affects people differently. Sometimes it's more just like being addicted to sugar. That's what's really weird. There's some people really, if you clean up their nutrition, they don't crave alcohol anymore because, you
It's
know,
interesting.
yeah, because, you know, alcohol is one metabolic pathway, and that is use it or fat storage. And the liver can start to convert it real quick because it's technically a poison. So the minute you ingest it, it starts converting. Some people like me are really fast metabolizers of alcohol. So I feel it really quick, and then I can feel really bad quick too. And then some people, you know, it's kind of funny. I joke about my wife. You know, I tell people, you know, these Mexicans can drink. Holy smokes, she could drink like 6 drinks to my one, and she's normal, and I'm like stuttering or slurring, and it's because she metabolizes alcohol and sugars very slowly. So what that means is she has a much, I mean, it's not even just alcohol; it's carbohydrate because it's all a sugar, right? Alcohol is a sugar too, well, at least parts of it. But so she has time for her body to kind of deal with it, whereas mine gets to it so quick, it's like, boom, and I'm in trouble. Then I'm coming down, and sugar's that way too, so it becomes more of like a drug to me. Or she, you know, and so for a lot of people, that's a metabolic issue attached to the other issues you were just talking about too. And I think for those people, it's really hard. That's why some people, you know, I think digging down into it, you have to be you have to have your spiritual formation going, right? You have to have your mind clear to go, what do I really want? It can't just be about, I just want to lose 40 pounds. Because you could do that and do it wrong. And we know what happens. That's all coming back. So
Yeah, it comes bounces back. Yeah.
Well,
In your practice, Sean, with the men that you see, you know, we're in halftime cruising through it. You know, kids are getting older, some grandbabies and things of that way going on, but we're not done yet. Your practice is thriving. It's on an uptick, and my career and trajectory and everything is like moving in an upticking way, but much more confident. Having been through the number of years, the ups and downs earlier in your career, my career, and things of that nature that normal people go through. So for the men that are out there and the men that you see, they're in halftime. Let's just nail like say 45 plus.
Yeah.
Is that right? Would you be able to nail or comment on maybe the top 3 things that you see men coming in to somehow find an explanation for physically, mentally, spiritually, the combination of what you're holistically looking at when you treat people?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the driving force for men to come in is very different than women. A lot of times women, it's weight, it's their body is rapidly aging. Men seem to be kind of like more, slow and steady. But I would say it's really tricky because I would say it's a lifetime of not wanting to deal with issues you already know are there. And they're starting to come out in scarier ways now. Like had chest pain.
Unpack that.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
like
Unpack.
I'm doing great. Everything's going well. And I just started having some chest pain and they did an MRI and my coronary artery is 99%. For everything's going great. And all of a sudden I started waking up at night to pee a little bit more. And I finally just ignored it, went and got it checked out, and I had prostate cancer. I feel like this is like, and these are real cases in the last 2 years I could think of that come to mind. Um, what's another one? So it's not just like, so I'm seeing a lot of men who are like we were talking about. They're a little beyond where I am. They're shutting down their careers by choice. Some of them are working still, but they don't need to be. A lot of affluent people, they've done really well. They've been, slow and steady and disciplined. And now, so in half of them, there's these problems like, oh my gosh, why is my body doing this? I need to get to the bottom of this now. And then in some, it's just they don't know and they seem very scared about it. Like, because it's that is this going to happen to me? You start hearing the heart disease. 50% of the time, the first symptom of heart disease is a heart attack, and half those people die. And that's not the 80 and 90-year-olds. That's not what we're talking about. The heart attacks are on the younger one, where the arteries actually, all your labs look good. And your arteries maybe only have, 20, 30, 40% blockage. You're fine. You're not a triathlete. You don't need these huge open I mean, that's kind of wear and tear, right? And those are the ones that are having these episodes, the strokes, the heart attacks. So I think I see these men that come in and their body is clearly giving them signs and symptoms, clearly. And a lot of times I hear all this from their wives because they're patients of mine. So it's really interesting to be on the sidelines kind of watching. And then I'll see the husband and then I'll see the wife and I'll see, okay, well, there's a little bit more to all this. But sometimes it's silly, like elbow pain messing up somebody's golf game. But the elbow pain isn't a musculoskeletal problem per se. It's a lot more to it. It's a combination of a metabolic issue and the nerves are not healing well because they're thickening because there's too much sugar in the blood. It's on the right extremity because the liver's on the right side and that liver's, I don't know if it's swollen or cirrhosed or there's ascites fluid backing up and it's putting pressure up on the nerve bundle that comes out of your neck. There's all these bizarre things. So it could show up like, oh, I have golfer's elbow, I have tendinitis. And you realize, listen, that tendinitis, which might not be an itis at all, it's pain. Did you whack your elbow on something? No. Did you do something repetitive with your right arm that you didn't do with your left arm? No. Did you do it? No. And it's been hurting for 2 months and it's getting debilitated. And you've done PT and ice and ibuprofen and all this, and it's still there. I said, it's like when your transmission or engine light starts flashing on your car when you're driving up a mountain. There's some things we ignore and there's some things you go, oh, I better pull over and check this out. So that's where I see men, if I could simplify, they're either afraid, like they don't know what's happening, but their body's giving them signs and symptoms, or they actually feel pretty great and something just snuck up on them. They're like, how did I get here? I'm at healthy body weight. My doctor told me I'm healthy. My labs look great. I've kept my cholesterol down. How is my artery 99% blocked? Bless you.
Thank you. I love the mute button.
So those are the two I'm seeing with men. And the scary one is that little bit younger. That's like the 58 to 64 man. That's like, they have worked hard. They're in a good situation. They're starting to have their grandkids. They are like, things are going great. And all of a sudden their body's starting to give them weird signs and symptoms. And they're a little scared and their wives are scared. And rightfully so, because I mean, you've been around long enough to lose some friends to cancer and heart disease. And these problems, they act like they just sneak up on us. Those are 10, 20, 30-year problems.
what I've experienced is a lot of joint pain. I lift a lot of heavy weights. I do metabolic, like high intensity training in between sets. So like in an hour. Anyway, putting my body through an awful lot. It takes me a lot longer to recover, right? I can't go 5 days straight like I used to. Can't do splits like that.
Yeah.
My joints, it's not even the muscle soreness. I know what muscle soreness is. That's fine. But just like getting up out of the chair and feeling achy, and it takes a little bit of time to get the caboose moving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
a vintage muscle car. Got to warm it up.
Yeah.
1968.
And I'm like, and it really hit as soon as you start cresting over, mid 50, it was like in a month, I was like, ooh, that takes I work through it, but it's almost like there's not enough oil in the hinges. I don't know.
Well, that's an exact thing of what I'm talking about. So
yeah,
I think understanding the potentials that can be is where you start.
Yeah.
Okay. So right off the bat, you do what most do, and it's not a bad thing to do. You look at your joint like a lever. Okay. You got muscles that move the lever, or muscles and joints that create the leverage you need to lift heavy things. So you assume, well, if I have something wrong in that mechanical system, it's got to be some overload or some overintensity, or maybe I'm not recovering fast enough, right? Which may be true, but it also could have nothing to do with that at all. It could have nothing to do with motion at all, which is most of the time what I see in the kind of people we're talking about. It could be 100% a food allergy, something you're eating. It could be 100%. Well, I shouldn't say 100%. Nothing's all something. We have all kinds of variants but there's something triggering it, right? Like something finally pops the check engine light to come on. But when it's systemic, right? If it's systemic, you're like, why is my big toe sore today? I didn't do anything yesterday. And why do my feet feel like that all the joints are like got sand in them, and my elbows and my knees and my hips and my neck. Every time I move, it's Rice Krispies. Okay, well, you didn't work out every muscle in your body that hard. So we have to get into, yeah. I mean, it could be psychosomatic pain. I mean, Dr. Sarno wrote a book forever ago called The Healing Back Pain and the Mind-Body Prescription and the Divided Mind. And it's all about psychosomatic pain, the science behind, because all pain is a message, right? Like if you do this and something hurts, I mean, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with where it hurts, right? Like do you have a cat? No, you have a dog. I wouldn't have you do this to a dog, but if you had a cat, I'd have you sneak up on it when it's sleeping and just stand on its tail. Just stand on it. See what happens. Okay.
What?
Yeah. The mouth screams and probably bites you. And so that's going to get all the attention, right? But is there something wrong with the mouth? Do we start looking in the mouth going, why is it making all this noise? And why is it being violent with me? No, get off its tail, right? So it's that kind of silly, like, you don't always want to be so logical. Our logical, critical thinking is great, unless it's not. And a lot of times, because we've built like ways of thinking that are pretty shaky, and they're normal to us, right? But once again, it's like it's the same level of thinking that created the problem. And now we're trying to use that to assess ourselves objectively, of course. It's kind of silly, right?
Very insightful, Sean.
Yeah. So I would come in and say, okay, well, stop exercising for 3 days and live the dream. On the 4th day, if anything hurts, it's not your exercise, right? Because you didn't do anything.
Deductive. Right? Yeah. Very Will's thing. Yeah.
People are like, oh, it's got to be gluten. Okay, well, did you stop eating gluten for 1 to 3 months? No, well, stop. And you'll know if it's gluten or not. If you still feel like crap in a month, it's not gluten. Or maybe it's 1%.
Allergy protocol, right?
Yeah. And we do all these oh my goodness. And, I get into the functional health space with some colleagues and talking about what they're doing. And it's just like, oh, it goes out there so far. I'm like, have you just thought about not, like you said, have you just thought about not having 7 cocktails a weekend? I mean, have you thought about that? Because you're doing all these other things. And, we intimately attach nutrition and exercise. That one always makes me laugh. So every fitness guru, right? You got one, you probably got a couple you follow, right? Why is it that they're
Sure.
talking about nutrition and fitness? Those are not related in any way. Why do we relate them?
Mm-hmm.
We either want to lose fat or gain muscle. So we
Right.
think, well, I got to bring that in. But are you kidding me? The way you look is like 99% intake. You don't have to go to the gym a day in your life and be ripped. All right,
Diet.
maybe do some
Yeah.
push-ups and air squats.
Gosh, that's the buzz phrase, all six packs begin in the kitchen.
I like that. I haven't heard that actually.
Yeah.
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 And
Somebody
the
said
reason
that.
I don't have a six-pack has nothing to do with the kitchen or the gym. It has to do with my mind. It's all my mind. It is my unwillingness to truly trust God on a very deep level. Superficial good, level 1 good, level 2. Ooh, now we're getting into the 30, 60, 100 fold. We start getting into that deeper revelation. Nope, don't trust God because my actions show that. I don't
Mhm.
say that like agreeing with myself, but if I look at the fruit of my life, I get to a point where no, God doesn't know this one about my career. God doesn't know this one about my marriage. God doesn't know this one about, my diet, because clearly plants are trying to kill me, yet he talks about eating plants. But I know best in some of these ways. And that I know best is creating my stress. That's my tension. That's that rub. So for me, and it's wild because I've tested it, Bob. I've eaten nothing but meat for 14 months straight, and I had unreal results, but then they started to kind of, the magic started to wear off without changing anything. And I was supplementing perfectly. My adrenal hormones are perfect, and my exercise is meticulous and scientific, and everything's right. And yet my joints hurt, getting headaches, not sleeping so good. Can't blame it on my age, because age is just we believe so much of these things. So it's mental stress for me
So
personally.
yeah. No, so if I'm closing the loop on what you're saying and um, not editing, but summarizing, you went on a carnivore diet, 14 months, and you saw great results, probably lost fat, muscle,
Unbelievable. Like in the first month, I'm like,
Adonis,
I feel like a
sculpture,
superhero. Yeah,
David in Florence, sculptured out.
I'm getting there.
And that at that point, 14 months, a year, 14 months, your body adapted to that and said, okay, what's next? Because there are other things that weren't,
It wasn't the thing.
it
Those were
wasn't the
good
thing.
things, and it
Bigger,
doesn't invalidate them, but we
right.
want to find the thing, right? What's the hack? Well, that was a really strong one. But here, and I'll be, vulnerable and share something. So it's kind of a funny story, but I think it gets to the heart of why I'm so confident in this. So I have this great, awesome, Indian doctor at Kaiser, and we don't agree on anything, but he's so funny to me. He's so serious, and he comes in, and I mean, he looks 20 years older than he is. And he's so confident in things I know he just can't be confident in, but he's doing what he's supposed to do. But I love it about him because he has the ability to go home and be okay with his life. And he's probably a sweet grandpa. And I try to make him laugh. It's just, I don't know why, when I can crack a smile, it makes me die inside laughing because he's so serious, but he cares about me. That's what I really appreciate. And it's Kaiser and, the whole mess. And, he prescribes me drugs and I got a whole drawer of them. I gotta get them, gotta pay for them and bring them home and put them in the drawer. So I could say, I am fulfilling those prescriptions, doctor. Yes. And I'm not going to ever take that poison. But so we're going back and forth. And he goes, Sean, this is serious. Your cholesterol levels are so high, you are going to die of a heart attack. He goes, we want them at 200 to 240. And you have this family history, hyperlipidemia and blah, blah, blah. And since you went on this new diet, it went from 4 something to 700. And it pegged the meter. The test it just said greater than. Yes, I'm an overachiever, right? And he's really serious. And my LDL is 600 and something. On my website, I posted an interview with a cardiophysiopathologist because I got a little nervous. Cause I'm going, I got to put my money where my mouth is. Now I feel great, but according to you guys, I'm going to die any day now because we want you to be on a statin. It's going to lower it this much. And so I started looking at statins, and we finally just said, hey, why don't we do an MRI of my heart vessels to see if I have any plaquing? Because that really is the fear, right? clogged heart vessel and I'm going to have a heart attack and a stroke or something like that. So we do that. And it's a 0 to 400. And anywhere from 1 to 400, you're starting to have problems. And well, I score a 0, which is great. But all the while, they read my score and they're like, hey, we got to send you in for something else. We found something on your heart valve or on your aortic arch. So it turns out I have and I don't know if it's congenital, don't know how long it's been there. I just have a serious aneurysm on my aortic arch. And an aneurysm is not good, right? We know about aneurysms, but it's not surgical intervention big, but it's much bigger than it could normally be. And they want to watch it now. And so I was anxious as a kid, but I really haven't been anxious as an adult. Well, something deep in me that I remember that feeling called anxiousness kicked in. My friend, that's when it all started to change. My blood pressure started to go up. I'm like a 120/70 guy with a heart rate of 45, 50. I'm pretty fit. All of a sudden I started getting 150s/110 on my blood pressure cuff. I started having problems sleeping at night. I started having like noticeable, like more tension headaches. I started having muscle cramping. Wake up in the night, my hamstrings and my feet would be kind of cramping. And I started to think and get in my head about this. And I started to kind of regress how good I was feeling. Didn't change my diet, didn't change my supplements, didn't change my exercise. That one piece of information that was already there, which is the comedy of it all, right? And I'm not doing anything different. I'm just watching it. But all of a sudden, something was already there. Now that I know it's there, it's like starting to tailspin my health. I mean, it's been probably almost a year now. And I'm like having to work through that. And that's all between my ears, my friend. But I have physical symptoms that are real, right? And we could blame it on, well, I'm 50, it's testosterone. I mean, it's, all of a sudden, like, used to be like a 13-year-old, with erections. And now it's all of a sudden, it's like, think about this. Wait, what's going on here? Like my body acting really real. All the things we talk about, like aging in men, but it's like, well, I triggered it all from one ideation of, gosh, I'm mortal. I could die. And, and that's where clearly the enemy wants to get in there. But I say all that just to tell you, we don't want to discount symptoms. They are our body's way of talking to us, but we do have to identify what they mean because we get it wrong almost every time. And when we get it wrong, there's high cost to getting it wrong. So you don't fix the real problem.
Right. Everything's interconnected. When you were talking about this, I just remember going into a Chinese and having a massage, but they've got the pressure point
right
up
all
there.
The lines,
all the lines and the connections for acupuncture and so on and so forth. How those things work, and I'm not even sure what that's called. What is that called?
I just think they're energy pathways, energetic points, centers.
Yeah, and everything is interconnected. So that's fascinating. That's fascinating. So, doctor on the call here. For men heading into 50 and in halftime, what are the top 3 recommendations you would give to men just to start the process of examining your health? Whether you feel fine today, something's going to catch up at some point. The numbers show it in the society.
Well,
what would those things be?
The biggest trending thing, the biggest by far problem in healthcare right now, you could talk to most doctors are just, they say it's heart disease, diabetes is really kicking into gear, and then all the brain disorders, right? Dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Here's what's fascinating. Just knowing that, I go, okay, well, what really is heart disease? Heart disease is the combination of pressure and inflammation. Okay. So, we want to keep our inflammation levels low, right? And that's different for everybody. But here's what I know. Eating highly processed foods, too much grain, too much sugar, that's going to cause inflammation, oxidation, called glycation. And that's what is going to inflame your epithelial walls, which is the inside of your arteries. So you don't want heart disease, you got to get rid of the sugar. I mean, that's just, and then the other thing is the brain, dementias, I believe they call it's either type 3 or type 4. Alzheimer's might be type 4. They label in diabetes. What do you mean diabetes?
Alzheimer's 4.
Yeah, and dementia, I think, is 3. What does that mean? It means the brain can't get energy. That's diabetes. That's what happens. Why? Because You've had so much sugar floating around for so long, it's thickened up the nerves and they can't get energy anymore. It's real simple how it works. Well, maybe we should quit eating sugar. So, you led off with like your big health epiphany was alcohol, right? Alcohol is one of the primary ways people are poisoning their liver and adding sugar to their bodies. And then, what's the other one? Carboholics. And what's crazy is for some people, this is wild, Bob. For some people, white table sugar is healthier than bread, depending on how their body metabolizes that. Fruit sugar, 30% of fruit sugar called fructose. So fructose is technically a poison too, if you're talking about like how alcohol works, because the minute you take in fructose, it's got to go to the liver and convert. And I'm terrible with remembering the biochemistry, but I believe 30% of fructose turns into alcohol, booze. So if you're eating a high fruit diet, so that's why I mean it's nuanced to you. Like if you have a kick butt, robust liver, I want you to eat fruit any day over grain. But if you don't, I might want you to eat grain over fruit. But the reality is we don't need that stuff. If we really want to burn fat and have a healthy brain, don't put sugar in your blood. Protein, but not protein powders and all that. That's all nonsense. That's good consumer marketing. I mean, pills and potions and powders, and it's not a good idea because it still will spike your blood sugar, a lot of that stuff.
And heavily processed chemicals.
Yeah, because I mean, powdered protein can spike your blood sugar. So we got to be careful with that stuff. Yeah, and it's processed, and we don't even understand what they're doing and where they're doing it. And it's just, people are like, oh, what about my whey protein shake? I'm like, you can't eat a hamburger patty? I mean, oh, it's so convenient. I'm like, well, about 10 of those puppies. Pretty convenient to grab one, I don't have to clean the stinky water bottle or, shaker bottle out. But it's just things like that. So I would say get off the sugar. But it is hard. You have to know, well, which sugar is most important. You could be militant like me and just get rid of it all. Or you could definitely start with the ultra processed, then go to the processed, and then go to get rid of flours and starches. We don't need French fries drowned in seed oil and all that. Controversy. Just stay out of the controversy. Don't need it. Don't put the World War II machine lubricant into your body, please. I don't know how bad that stuff is, but that is what it is. The Canadians figured out a way to make it less toxic, but they're the ones, it doesn't mean it's still good for us, but they're made, because it was World War II machine lubricant, and there was this uric acid in it, and the Canadians figured out how to lower that because they crossbred the plant, and they did some really cool things, I'm sure, in food science, but still not supposed to be eating that stuff. It's not feasible. So yeah, I would say the sugar is the number one thing from a nutritional, what you put into your body. The second thing is moving your body, but not over-exercising. Over-exercising is a big problem. It's just like racing your engine around. If you got a Toyota, 2020 Toyota, you could redline that thing for the next 10 years. It's going to be okay. I mean, I'm not literally saying to do that, right? But if you have a 1968 Camaro and you're going to redline that around town, that thing will be gone in 2 days. You know that. That engine is not built for that. And so all these crazy exercise programs people are doing, they're really kind of contraindicated for joint health, for metabolic health. And that's where they're like, just go out and walk in the sunshine. Just go out and walk in the sunshine. Do some squats and push-ups. Stay out of the gym for the most people. That's where all the craziness happens. The neurotic behavior, the gym bro science.
Injuries. Yeah.
The girls we don't need to be looking at. The guys we don't need to be looking at, like comparing ourselves. The whole thing is just so neurotic. Yeah. And then the injuries. You know how it goes. You got a couple guys all hyped up. I'm going to put an extra 10 pounds on this puppy. Well, that was the 10 pounds that tore your pec bicep, or your pec tendon and your bicep tendon. And now you're 6 months surgery. You're going to gain all your weight back. You're going to get on opiate. Like, let's not do. If you're a power lifter, great, go compete. If you're not a power lifter, stop doing what power lifters do.
So much can be done with just body weight.
So much. So much. Yeah. So I would say I like the high rep stuff though for men as we're aging. I went from doing sets of 8 to 12 conventionally I did 3 sets and then I realized I just hit me one day. I'm like, my gurus, Charles Poliquin and all these, he's probably one of the best. He passed, but he created more gold medal strength athletes. I think at 24 different sports. His people were strong. I'm like, I'm not competing in anything. My kids already think I'm strong. What do I need to who am I impressing? So I immediately switched. I started doing sets of 60 to 100. And I'm able to do that every single day. It doesn't overtrain me. I mean, I'm lifting light weights, right? Imagine, like if I said, Bob, I want you to do 60 to 75 hammer curls straight. How much weight
At
you
the
think you're
burn.
lifting?
I could
You're
feel the
putting
burn
those
just you
30s and
talking.
25s and 20s back, and you're picking up the 10s, 12s, and 15s tops. And I like that because
Yeah.
same volume. So that's a really good thing for
Same.
men too. So we got the sugar. We have more like high repetition, low volume, but do it frequently. Do whatever you're going to do frequently. Try to create an everyday thing. So then there's not like, oh, I'm taking my rest day today. You don't need a rest day. If you want a Sabbath, that's great, but just don't overdo it. Do it every day because you need that routine, right?
Routine for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's very, very, very helpful. As we get older, we store up a lot of knowledge in our life, and we look back. Sometimes we live, we carry on, like you're saying, carrying things around with us that only manifest later on in life. And sometimes we get opportunities to share with others, wisdom of don't do this. If I could go back, man, if I had a nickel, if I could go back to my 30s, I would just say it. So, Sean, what would you be telling your younger self? Call it like 25. What would advice, what one, maybe two, but one, if you had one key bit of advice, just in the whole thing. Does that have to be in the wellness, the mental health,
Yeah.
financial, whatever? What's that one piece of advice now sitting in halftime that you would implore the most important thing to remember?
I think for me, I would have told myself to stop living in the future. All the things I needed to do to be healthy and well and happy and prosperous were always in the future. And because of that, I created a lot of anxiety for myself. I didn't take seriously enough to be anxious for nothing, for tomorrow will have enough of its own worries. And I really mean that. Um, I just didn't. I'm like, oh, yeah, I believe that. I believe that. And now here's how I'm going to show you I believe the opposite by pushing and stretching and, living off of tomorrow's energy today. And I think myself and many people, they're living off of tomorrow's energy today. And that is a vacuum. That is a negative. That is a black hole. You will suffer because we need that energy tomorrow. And eventually enough days go by and you keep pulling out, you keep overdrafting your future. And this is why everybody's body is metabolically unhealthy and the bone density is low and the muscle density is low. And we're so fragile because we have pulled out tomorrow's energy for today. So I would have really realized, okay, why am I so afraid of the now? Like, what is in the now that I can't be at peace and at rest? And so that's a deeper dive, right? But it was clear because that is what anxiety is. It's your mind's in the future almost every time at what could happen, what's going to happen, and it's great when everything's great, right? Like when you're on your young man, Bob, and you're looking at those 30s and 40s and 50s, it's all going to be great until you start having some failures and some things not work out, and then the mind goes, now it's all going to be bad, and that's the flip side of that ambition, living in the future. And I think that's what most men somewhere in there, even my friends that are really prosperous, economically in their businesses, I look at their families, I look at their health, and I mean, it's rare to find somebody who's got it all. And then it's like, but I can find some people that are living pretty humbly and don't have it all, but they're a lot healthier and happier. Like, oh, shoot, maybe I should have paid more attention to that. So that's what I'm trying to will myself to stay in the day, not into tomorrow.
I think it's very biblical in the process, saying what does worry provide you? Not
I'm so good at. I'm like, I have like a doctorate in worry. I'm just being strategic, Bob.
oh yeah,
I'm
just
forecasting. I'm strategic.
forecasting,
Nah, you're a
repositioning.
scared little kid. That's what you are.
It also creates fear, and fear is a liar, and the darkness of the darkness distorts what reality is because you can't see into the future. It's dark. You can't see. It's cloudy. Distorts what truth would look like. And I just love that, is that fear is a liar and darkness distorts. And I think that adds the anxiety and things, what you're saying. I think that's very, very powerful, Sean.
Yeah. Just listen to your body. Don't assume you know what it means.
So when's your book coming out?
Well, I mean, I got the
Don't be
outline.
dumb.
Don't be dumb. Gosh darn it, Sean, don't be dumb. Everything will be dedicated to me. Every chapter will start with my
That's
dumbness.
really dumb.
Dumb. But soon, man, and it will be fun. And the whole idea is to create talking points of things that we really do need to talk about, but we're being dumb and ignorant to things that are right in front of us. That it's scary, and like you said, fear is, I think, the biggest problem. Most people aren't. I mean, some people just want to be right, but at a certain point, right, you get tired of being in pain. You're like, okay, I don't need to be right anymore. I just need to be well. But then it's like, well, who do I trust now? Because once you break out of that matrix, that's a tough one. You got to trust some people. So, I mean, that's why we have a friendship. And, I got a small, what do they call those Rolodex? Remember the Rolodex?
Oh my
Find your
God.
numbers.
I remember
My
one.
trusted Rolodex.
Your
Remember that?
trusted Rolodex.
I bet you had a big one.
But I was a early adopter of just everything tech when I was enrolling. So I was a Palm Pilot guy.
Oh, you probably remember the handspring, that weird little Palm Pilot.
Yeah, and just typing in a little pen.
A metallic business card with a magnet in it, and you'd open it up as like an accordion. It had all your written numbers on it. That's me, buddy. I remember when you got an iPhone thinking,
OG. That's so funny. That is great.
I remember when you got that iPhone, I think it was like 2006 or something, and all your finger motions, I'm like, I'm never giving up the BlackBerry. That's tech enough. And then
BlackBerry, we had it. I had
remember
it.
You needed the buttons, and now it's like all that swiping, and pretty soon it'll just be thinking. And all making us a lot healthier and happier, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for us to plug in with a USB cable into the computer and dial up ChatGPT, and it tells me everything I need to know.
Seriously.
My life, for me, some matrix,
right or wrong, it'll give you an answer.
Relation, baby. Relation.
Yeah.
Dr. Sean Patterson, dear friend, longtime friend, unbelievably knowledgeable. And those of you interested in reaching out to Dr. Patterson, I'm going to put his practice link in the show notes. And then hopefully, Sean, when you publish it, you can give our audience a little sneak peek and pre-order link and do what I can to share the good news and what you got going on. We'll have you back later as well, because it's just invaluable for guys like us.
Guys like us trying to be well.
All right. I hope you do get some rest and get some sunshine.
Thank you, sir.